While I wouldn't exactly call it a trope of fighting games, sometimes there's an animal or two on the roster because hey, why not? A cuddly woodland creature won't disrupt the balance of martial artists, magicians, vampires, and whatever else the developers decide to throw at us. So here, I'll be looking at the most entertaining and strongest animals playable in fighting games, suggested by viewers Mr.123x, Shark Fan of the Sea, Denisha Taylor Singh, Mr. Meowfection, Steven Cisneros, Midnight Huergo, Lucifer, and Kruger Pool the 13th. Hope I pronounced all your names correctly. This list will only include characters who are designed as pure animals as the main playable fighter, so no animals that just function as a few attacks for a different main fighter. Also, no humanoid animals like werewolves or lizard men, no animal transformations like Bloody Roar, no dinosaurs, and I will exclude games where basically the entire roster is composed of animals. However, if these animals are more than just physical fighters, having something like magical or psychic powers, that's okay with me. Finally, no characters based on animals from the cat family, since there are enough of those characters in fighting games for their own list someday. So stay tuned for that eventually if you're watching my lists in chronological order. Now enough of these restrictions, let's get wild with my top 10 animals in fighting games. Number 10. Poppy from Samurai Showdown. Poppy was a secret character in Samurai Showdown 5, and part of Samurai Showdown 6's PlayStation exclusive group of the sidekick animals that were only support moves or featured in outros in previous games, now is their own full playable character. Poppy the dog was no longer the eternal sidekick of Galford the ninja. He was entering the fight because his sprite assets were still available to make a new character without having to draw anything extra. The same happened with Poppy's animal colleagues of a chimp, wolf with bird, and this thing, but Poppy's inclusion came first and was the most charming of the bunch, probably because his lack of new sprite animation creates this hilarious looking doggy pile driver, where his sprite just rotates 90 degrees to initiate the attack. And how could you possibly ignore the compelling conversations Poppy had pre-battle, like when Kurokochi and him discussed his motives. "Isn't this Master Dog? Long time no see. What brings you here today?" Bow wow, bow wow. Truly beautiful. They could write a novel about this. Number 9. Pojo the Chicken from Mace the Dark Age. Mace the Dark Age had a good sense of humor behind its gruff, edgy appearance. On the surface, it was a combination of Soul Calibur and Mortal Kombat, with weapon-based combat on a 3D plane, and finishing moves for the winner. But with a few secret codes, we got some joke characters like a janitor and an average-sized chicken. This character just reused the chicken model that appears in Taria's finishing move when she turns her opponent into a chicken, but regardless, Pojo is the best chicken. Pojo's attacks are standard chicken actions, like running towards you, pecking, or laying an egg, but these motions can cause damage equal to the impact of the weapon strikes in this game. When Pojo finishes you off, she does what no other chicken can do and takes flight, while grabbing her opponent with her feet, taking them off to some distant land, or to eat them, depends how she feels today. Number 8. Slither the Snake from Eternal Champions. Eternal Champions had a bunch of animals in its Sega CD release. Each animal had a small hitbox, a few attacks based on how that animal may fight in the wild, and a few cartoony attacks added in, like how Crispy the Chicken doubled as a Kung Fu Chicken, and Zuni the Monkey threw banana peels before it was cool. But Slither the Snake seemed to have the hardest to implement concept, being a limbless animal in a fighting game, which has gameplay based around using your arms and legs. He got around those limitations quite easily though. His attacks consisted of hitting with his full body, turning into a wheel, biting, or upgrading that to temporarily eating his opponent whole. But his most majestic attack that you won't find with your average wild snake is where he turns into a figurative helicopter by spinning his neck really fast. Best snake in gaming. Yeah, I said it. Number 7. Panda from Tekken. Panda is the bluntly named pet and bodyguard of Xiao Yu. Now, a wild animal might not be the best choice for a bodyguard, but fear not, for Panda has at least average human intelligence if you're fluent in thought bubbles and subtitles. To further show that Panda has integrated with human society, she was able to hang out with the other girls and one robot in the various Tekken Tag 2 arcade mode endings as if she was a normal human teenager at an amusement park. It was also very nice of this establishment to let a panda in at the front gate. Being Xiao Yu's bodyguard, Panda's reason for fighting in these tournaments is because Xiao Yu wants to fight and Panda gets caught up in all the fighting commotion. Panda's moveset is not too special since she uses the moves of the main bear fighter in Tekken who premiered before her and expectedly will be an entry on this list, so I'll explain all that later. Sometimes Panda is her own selectable character and other times she is just a costume swap of the other bear. However, Tekken 7 was nice enough to make her a separate fighter and accessorize her with a stylish hat and sunflower purse. But what's a panda gonna carry in a purse? Bamboo? No, actually that's probably the best option because it needs snacks, and considering pandas eat up to 16 hours a day, according to what I read on the back of a Snapple bottle cap. Number 6. Pet Shop from the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game. Welp, we found it, the most broken animal in fighting games. Pet Shop was banned from tournaments due to having the stellar blend of a small hitbox and infinite combos. Just do those icicle attacks a lot, you'll win, probably. Except on that dog, he also benefits from tiny hitbox syndrome. Pet Shop is unique as a fighting game character since he rarely counts as being grounded. Since he's a bird, he's usually in flight. His base attacks, though, go beyond what you'd expect from a standard falcon. Forget about taking flight, he dives underground. More importantly, Pet Shop pulls out the cryomancy abilities. He really likes icicles apparently, since that's all he does with this power. He also encases himself in a block of ice when he charges at you, but spikes of ice are really his thing. Regardless, you'll learn to fear this falcon if you want to avoid hypothermia, or just being impaled. Number 5. Donkey Kong in Super Smash Bros. Smash Bros. Has featured a good amount of animals across its games, considering all the Pokemon, primates, and Duck Hunt, which was a normal dog and normal duck teaming up to destroy the world. They seem like the most realistic animals in the series, but I'm going with the original animal in Smash Bros, Donkey Kong, who actually doesn't do that much out of the ordinary for an ape. What incredibly unrealistic thing can he do? Tie a half Windsor knot? Play the bongos? Donkey Kong fights the way I'd expect an ape from the jungle to, using his fists. He slams the ground, he punches you in the face, he does the arm helicopter of doom. While he has a rich history in gaming, his moveset gets straight to the point of making him a great character if you want to lay a brute force banana slammin', no I should never even reference that, brute force beatdown. Amendment, Pikachu was also an original animal in Smash Bros. Donkey Kong does not get that title alone. Sorry about that, Sparky. Number 4. Roger from Tekken. A kangaroo does seem like it would be a good boxer. It's funny to imagine a random kangaroo from the wild that happens to attack like a boxer, but that is not the case for this guy. Roger was genetically engineered to be a fighter, so it was nice of those scientists to give him boxing gloves. The scientists also made a dinosaur named Alex who conveniently fights exactly like Roger and is the exact same size. It's almost like they knew he would be a good alternate costume for the kangaroo if this was some video game world they lived in. Roger was eventually replaced with his son, sort of. In Tekken 5 and onwards, Roger Jr. was introduced to make sure the Roger legacy lived on after the original Roger got too old, retired, went home and became a family man. Despite the name, Roger Jr. is actually the wife of Roger holding his son in the pouch, both wearing boxing gloves of course. Same moveset as Roger, but even more ridiculous looking, not that I'm complaining. Putting Roger Jr. in the game did not eliminate Roger from the story though. He appears in Junior's arcade mode endings, where he has a rocky relationship with his wife because he's off avoiding his family or caught flirting with a bunch of lady kangaroos. If you thought Lucky Chloe or Gon was the most bizarre thing we ever saw in Tekken, you were probably right, but Roger Jr.'s endings come close sometimes. Number 3. Gorilla Grodd from Injustice 2. While most of the animals on this list have a comedic tone to them, nothing is funny about Gorilla Grodd. He's meant to intimidate you with his size, strength, and intelligence. This guy drinks out of a skull and then crushes it in his intro. Where does he keep getting all those human skulls? You can't just buy those at Bed Bath & Beyond. When he walks or is in his battle stance, he has the posture of a wild gorilla, but when he needs to show dominance and lead his troops, he stands up straight. His brawling attacks are what you'd anticipate from an enraged gorilla using his natural strength, ground pounding, jumping on, biting, and charging at his foe. But his real superpower lies in his mind. To quote Green Arrow in the Injustice 2 story mode, fighting a talking ape wasn't enough, had to throw in telekinesis, which I found to be a funny fourth wall breaking critique of Grodd's powers. His psychic abilities allow him to mind control his opponent or shroud himself in psionic energy. The mind control is more just having his opponents hurt themselves through a nondescript action, but when Grodd uses the psionic energy, he can make himself immune to projectiles as he lumbers in, or do this Supergirl-esque flight which looks kinda doofy when he does it, but he's a big scary gorilla who crushes skulls, so everything he does is a-okay to me. Number 2, Amaterasu in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. She's a wolf that's also a god, the sun god to be precise, so she doesn't need to rely on normal wolf fighting tactics with her elemental powers. Except the headbutts. She loves to headbutt. You can just mash forward heavy and get a legitimate combo going with just head smashes. With everything else though, watch out. She does the Okami Shuffle, which is more festive than the Curly Shuffle and the Melbourne Shuffle combined, where Amaterasu creates a storm of fire, ice, and lightning, and she can invite the mist to slow down her opponents. Amaterasu also has a few weapons infused with this divine power, namely a sword, whip, and magic necklace that shoots ice, and yes, I'm simplifying the godly nature of these weapons. For her actual character design, Amaterasu gets the honor of being the only quadruped in the series, making her hitboxes very weird and allowing attacks to go right over her body that would normally hit other standing characters. So take on those inferior bipeds with this quadrupedal wolf, or dog as everyone likes to refer to her as. Hulk calls her dog, Trish says, "Here, Pooch," and Felicia tries to play with the quote-unquote puppy. Show some respect for the sun god, all of you. Tekken really knows how to balance out the serious martial artists with the more bizarre fighters. They've shown us that they're not only the king of the Iron Fist, but king of the robot and animal fighters as well. Roger and Panda followed the original animal in mainstream fighting games, being number 1. Kuma the Grizzly Bear from Tekken. In the history of Tekken, there have been 2 Kumas, with the first one being in the first 2 games, and his son, being identical to him, appearing in every game from Tekken 3 onwards. The first Kuma died of old age in the 20+ years between the story of Tekken 2 and Tekken 3, making room for his son so the game can still have its fighting bear and not have a grizzly bear that defies the lifespan of every other grizzly bear that exists. Naturally, being in more games, Kuma 2 has more personality than his father. He was trained by former final boss Heihachi to be a bear bodyguard and an elite member of his personal army. Bear bodyguards seem to be popular in the Tekken universe. Get yours today. As implied earlier, he has the same moveset as Panda, but his bloodline came first, so he was the originator. His moves are a combination of wild bear attacks and the disciplined movements of a trained martial artist. Despite that, the second Kuma is more of a comedic character than his father and even Panda, usually getting himself into the tournament to help Heihachi's business or honor his legacy as a bear, which leads him to hilarious scenarios when the serious story is going on. He reached his peak when he took over a company in one of those non-canon endings. Other humorous Kuma things include when he does the Kozak dance upon victory, and in Street Fighter Cross Tekken where they had him fart in his opponent's face for a super move. Years of martial arts training boiled down to this ancient technique. I would even put some of his costume options in the comedy category, with my favorite being the simple red shirts, which makes him look like a violent Winnie the Pooh. The Tekken Force gear was also pretty ridiculous, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken once again turned up the absurdity by making him a grizzly-sized teddy bear. Even with the comedic tone of Kuma, his artwork made him look terrifying. He looks like he's ready to maul, maim, and mutilate in most shots. Except Tekken 7, that artwork made him look friendly. So that's Kuma, or more Kuma 2 if you want to get technical. the top animal and fighting games according to this list. So, what did you think of these choices? Are there any beasts from the animal kingdom that appeared in fighting games that I snubbed? Were some of these animals I spoke about not worthy of a spot in the arena? Let me know in the comments. If you want to hear from me outside of my videos, I'm on Twitter at MrTopTenList, and I recently did a guest voiceover in SoftwareAgentsCorp's parody series of Did You Know Gaming called Are You Aware of What You're Playing? It was a special anime edition about Rumiko Takahashi anime, so feel free to check out either of those or just let the video end and enjoy your day. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.